on that, yeah, now I get to follow up with strategic planning, which kind of feels like a bit of a like, oh, like such a great discussion, and now we're going to talk about strategic planning. But hopefully I'll change that a little bit and won't make it too dry or too boring. I think a lot of people, when they hear the word strategic planning, kind of like, I don't know, a little part inside of them kind of like shrivels up and is like, oh, like what's that? Why do we have to do that? That's useless. That's, I don't know. I think there's a lot of different held beliefs around it. I'm definitely not an expert, I wouldn't say, in strategic planning. I've done a fair bit of strategic planning. I think I'm one of the rare people who actually likes strategic planning. And so, yeah, it asked me to share a little bit about some of the resources and some of the learning that I've gotten to do. I think most of you know I work with Ike, and I'm the executive director of the organization we work for. So a big part of my role is around strategic planning. And yeah, and I actually really like it, and I find it energizing and somewhat exciting, which is not how everyone thinks about it. So what I tried to do today was to sort of share some of the reasons and some of the things that I think make strategic planning sort of really useful, really effective, and pull on some resources and share them with you. And so hopefully you can also play around with those ideas and think about maybe how strategic planning might be a useful tool in your toolbox, like Ike was just saying. So yeah, let's dig in. So let's start with, yeah, what is strategic planning? What does that mean? So this is the best sort of concise definition that I've found or come up with, but a strategic plan is a tool that provides guidance in fulfilling your mission or your vision in the best possible way. So it's kind of like it's finding that best path to get you to where you want to go is kind of how I think about it. So here's kind of two paths. The point of strategic planning is to help you sort of navigate which is the best path we should take towards our vision, towards our goal, towards overcoming that challenge that we really want to overcome. And strategic planning is sort of different than other levels of planning, and I've sort of broken it into three different types. And I have generative planning, which I think is that like really big picture, blue skies, like what's the big change we want to create in the world kind of planning. And that's I think a lot of people gets people really excited. Often it's like, let's dream about the change that we can make and what we want to do. What's our overall vision? What are we working towards? Oftentimes those are really big changes, things that take a long time to get to. So in some of the conversations we had, you guys are just having now, it could be some of that, like, you know, decreasing racism in Calgary is, you know, a big vision or a mission that we're working towards. It's sort of like, what's at the top of that mountain that we're really working towards? And I think that's really important. And you need a really solid vision in order to do strategic planning. Because to me, strategic planning is saying that what's the pathway that we're going to take to get to that vision? What are we going to do to get to the top of that mountain? There's lots of different ways to tackle some of these really big challenges or these really big ideas or changes that we want to make. How do we decide on which path we're going to take or which direction we're going to take? What are the goals? What are the approach? What priorities do we want to focus on as a group or as an organization or as a team to help push us forward? And strategic planning, I think, is sort of that really important link between that really big picture and the like everyday what you're doing. It kind of ties the two together. And that third part, that operational planning, is more that's the thing, like that's the planning that's like, okay, who are we going to invite to this event and how many people and where is the venue and what's that? It's that very specific activities and things that you need to do, kind of the day-to-day planning to actually get the work done. It's kind of like the very nuts and bolts. And so strategic planning is kind of that sweet spot in the middle that keeps you on the right path and makes sure you're going in the right direction. And make sure that, you know, that day-to-day stuff that you kind of get lost in isn't taking you some other way, but it's that really important link in the middle. Does that make sense? Any questions before I keep going? Cool. So why do we do strategic planning? This is from an article. There's lots of reasons why to do strategic planning. These are 4 things that this article came up with that I think are 4 really important things, but there's probably other reasons to do it too. So one, it creates a forward-focused vision and a plan to reach that vision. So it gives us that direction, kind of brings everyone, especially when you're working with others on a problem or towards something, having a well-known plan that everyone's going in the same direction, not all going off in different directions and, you know, maybe counteracting each other's work or things like that. A strategic plan keeps everyone sort of on the same path together. Oh, I forgot. I was going to say, I'm going to go back for a second. In this strategic planning, I think like a really good analogy for me in this is like, okay, we know we want to get to the top of that mountain. The strategic planning is saying like, okay, are we going to get a helicopter to take us there? Are we going to build a road? Are we going to take a footpath? Are we going to find horses? Like what's our plan? What's the method that's going to get us there? And then the operational planning is the like, okay, what do we need to do to get a horse and find the paths and, you know, get food for the horse and all the things that are going to get us up to the top of the mountain. So that the strategic part to me is like really deciding what's the opportunities that are available to us and which one do we want to pick going forward. And that's what that first point I think is really about, as well as the second one is it like makes you reflect and say, okay, why do we pick, you know, one thing versus the other? Let's think about, it helps to like leverage our own strengths and what we have. Maybe we already have a horse that can help us get to the top of the mountain. So that's our best effort. But if we don't take stock of kind of what our strengths are, what opportunities we have, then we might pick the wrong pathway to the top. It also draws attention to like any risks or biases or challenges that we could face along the way. It kind of helps us get prepared to do that, to say, okay, what are the things that, you know, we think we might encounter? How can we mitigate some of those risks? How can we know it's going to be tough on this part of the mountain? What are some things we want to bring with us so that, you know, and we're going to plan that now so we don't get there, realize we need it and have to come back and pick up those supplies and then go back again. So strategic planning really helps to think through what are some of those risks and challenges that we're going to face and how are we going to meet them and how are we going to help ourselves be successful. And then the final one that I think is really important is it helps us to keep track of our progress and to know where we've come from and understand that change that we're making. So we can be checking in and saying, okay, are we on the path that we want to be going on, or are we somewhere else? And maybe if we're somewhere else, maybe that means we actually have to change our plan, or maybe it means we have to like get back to the original plan. But it forces us to have those conversations. Otherwise, we might just start kind of going off in different directions without really knowing why, or having anything to bring us back or to check in and say like, do we need to change or do we need to stick to our plan? So those are some of the whys behind it. This is, so when you like study strategic planning, like if you were to take an MBA or there's sort of like 2 big camps of strategic planning. And they're like sort of both were put forward by like 2 old white guys. So I apologize for that, but they still like over like 20, 30 years are still the like 2 big main camps of strategy. And they're deliberate strategy versus emergent strategy. And I kind of liken them to like a map versus a compass. The deliberate strategy view is like more the traditional kind of view of strategic planning. It says like, okay, let's decide where we're going to go, how we're going to get to that mountain, what path actions we're going to take, and then let's follow that. So it involves a lot of like, you have to do a lot of in-depth pre-analysis to sort of figure out and like come up with what are all those risks and challenges, really look at all the problems, really try and understand it as you can from the beginning and make that plan and then follow that plan. And then you get to the end of that plan and then you evaluate and see if it's been successful or not. Did you get to the top of the mountain or didn't you get to the top of the mountain? Some of the advantages of that is it's pretty clear cut. It gives you like pretty strong direction. It kind of aligns everyone in one direction really, really strongly and says, okay, here's what we're going to do. Let's go do it. The other strategy camp is what's called Emergent Strategy. And this is a little bit newer, but it's also been around for like, well, 1994, so probably like longer than most of you. So it's not that new. But the idea behind Emergent Strategy is that it's more of a work in progress. That you always start with an intended strategy, and you can see that arrow there. But you know that some parts of that strategy aren't going to end up working because you can't know everything when you begin. And also there's going to be other things that come up and other ways of doing that you're going to find along the way. So new strategy is going to arise as we start going. And we have to be able to sort of adapt our strategy in order to bring in some of those things that emerge and ideas. And so we end up with a sort of a realized strategy that's, a little bit similar to what our intended strategy was, but kind of changes course a little bit because we're responding and adapting to what's going on around us. And it doesn't mean that you don't have that initial intended strategy. It just means that it's not just like building that strategy at the beginning and then following it no matter what. It means you have to actually be continuing to check in on that strategy. And it's not just about, creating one plan and sticking with it. It's about how do we create a process to keep sort of updating our strategy, keep learning as we go, keep bringing in new information and adapt how we're going forward. So yeah, I kind of see this more as like a compass that you have, that it's like that intended strategy is guiding you towards where you want to go. But, when you meet something, you may end up going around a different way because there's a log across the path or who knows what. And you have to sort of adapt to what happens as things change. Yeah, any questions before I go on, about deliberate or emergent strategy? Okay, cool. So what makes a good strategic plan? And I've taken this, there's an article, there's a link there. I've kind of stolen their 10 keys to a successful strategy, but also updated it kind of based on my own experience and my own thoughts and things like that, and why I like strategic planning. So yeah, 10 things that really help to build a really good strategic plan and get you to where you want to go. So first one is understand the context. A lot of people, when they do strategic planning, they just focus on what they want to do without spending a lot of time understanding the environment around the community, where they're going, what's happening, what's already happening, what opportunities or challenges are out there. They kind of just get an idea and they're like, oh, I've got this great idea, let's map it out forward. But if you don't sort of know the systems around, you don't understand the environment, the community needs, what's happening already, what's going on, chances are your strategy is not going to be very good. And so you almost need to spend as much time understanding what's happening as you do planning what's going forward. And I think that's a really important part of a good strategic plan. The next one is to know yourself, and yourself is like you personally, but also the team. And because your strategic plan is going to be unique to you. It's not, planning how some other organization is going to get to the top of the mountain. It's planning how you are going to get to the top of that mountain. And that's going to be different because you have different strengths, you have different capabilities, you have different weaknesses. Maybe I'm a really good pilot, and so I can fly a helicopter to the top of the mountain. Like, let's do that. But just because the other group is flying a helicopter there, if we don't have a helicopter pilot, then we shouldn't do that. We should find another way. And so it's really important to know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and have that shape sort of what you're uniquely set out to do to work towards that problem. And I think especially in sort of social change, less so maybe in business, it's not a competition, right? Like if you're working towards anti-racism work, like the more people that are working towards that, the better it is. And you don't want to duplicate what other people are doing. Maybe you can sort of tackle another gap or another challenge that someone else isn't tackling so that everyone kind of gets to there faster and better. Third one is an inclusive approach. And I think that's really important too. No one person knows everything, right? So the more perspectives you can bring in, the stronger your plan is going to be. And to me, a really important part of strategic planning is how do we engage, everyone who needs to be part of this change, and bring in those different perspectives, because nobody likes to just like have a role given to them and be like, here's what you do. Everyone's going to be more engaged in working towards what they're doing if they were part of that planning process, or they had input, or they felt heard. And it's going to make your plan a lot stronger too. So strategic planning is a really good way to connect with others who are going to be part of that change that you want to create. I put that note there that it doesn't mean that like all views, it doesn't mean you have to like take in everybody's view and try to, like make your plan encompass everything that everyone says. Like there's going to have to be some prioritization or things like that, but it will strengthen it if you like listen to that and then make some decisions and say, okay, we decided to go this way because of everything that we heard. And so, yeah, that sort of leads into the next one, is like making sure you have the right people in the right roles with the right responsibilities in your strategic planning process. So you want to have like active participation at all levels. You want to make sure you're aware of power dynamics, not one person's voice is just being heard louder than the other because they feel more important or for whatever reason. You want a really good strategic plan, sort of balances like a top-down approach. So like knowing, people maybe who have more power, they have important perspectives to be heard, but so do people who maybe don't have as much of that power, but are more on the ground and doing the work, and try to find a good balance in how to bring all of those perspectives in. The next one is to plan the process. So you're making a strategic plan, but you need a plan to make the plan. And a lot of times people don't really think intentionally about how to make that plan for the plan. And I mean, that sounds really boring. Like how many planning levels can you get? But it's a chance to be creative. It's a chance to make a process that like really brings people together, really gives the space to have really good discussions. If a strategic planning process is done really well, there's space to sort of be creative, to bring in new ideas, to play with those, but then also to sort of focus and narrow down and say, okay, here's what we're going to do going forward. And that doesn't just happen overnight. You can't just be like, put a bunch of people in the room and then all of a sudden you're going to have a beautiful strategic plan. It does take some like intentional design and thinking about how are we going to bring forward everyone's different ideas and perspectives. How are we going to put them together? Who needs to have input at what stage? How can we find, really engaging ways so that people aren't just like sitting there bored, like they, want to be somewhere else, but actually are feeling like, oh, this is something I'm really excited about, and builds their energy and engagement and enthusiasm in the plan going forward. Next one is pay attention to the lessons learned. So that could be your own lessons learned, like what have you done in the past that you've learned, and make sure that kind of comes into what you're doing going forward. It could also be looking at other people's lessons learned, right? If someone has already learned something about how to get to the top of that mountain, then pay attention to that, because that can help you as well. If someone's already tried one route and it really failed, then maybe you don't want to try that route, or at least understand why it failed, and then see if that's something you can address or not. You have to, I think you also have to make sure that you don't just like assume that just because something worked for someone else, or just because it didn't work for someone else, it is going to work or isn't going to work for you. So you have to kind of adapt that learning to your own context and your own organization, or how things have changed. And that's why it's important to know that. But it helps you to think about going forward. The next one is to have clear priorities and goals sort of as your output. I think a big challenge that often comes from strategic planning is that it's kind of just like everything, all the ideas get put in, and then it's like, it's not really a plan, because it's just saying like, here's all the possible ways we could do this. And that still like it's not specific enough. It's not something that people can really, get behind or work on. It needs to be prioritized. If you're not making choices, then you're not really applying strategy. You're just saying, here's all the options on the table. So yeah, getting really clear priorities and goals as your takeaway is important. But that being said, you also want to have plans, and sort of like with that emergent idea, to revisit it, to revise it, and to integrate it into your work going forward. So it's not just a document that you create and then sits on someone's computer and never gets looked at again. But it's something that you can bring into your ongoing activities. You can find ways to engage with going forward, that you have times, you know, when you're going to check back in on it and say like, okay, are we still going along the right place? Do we need to shift? What do we need to change? I'm almost done. The 9th one is patience. I think a lot of times people like want to have their strategic plan done in like a day or a week. And it's probably not going to happen. If you want to do a really good strategic plan, it's going to take time, it's going to take resources, it's going to take energy, and it's not going to be a one-off thing. I found a quote when I was pulling together some of these resources that said, it's better to do no strategic planning than to do poor strategic planning. Because if you start with a really bad plan, then you're probably going to be like starting in the wrong direction, and it's going to not really help you at all. Like you're going to have so far to adapt. So it's better to just start rather than, and you've wasted some time and energy in doing it. And also to recognize, and this was a big learning for me the last time I did a strategic planning process, is that yes, like what you come up with is important, but even just that process of having those conversations, sometimes it's like, oh, like I can't believe this took like 3 days, but that was, 3 days of really good engagement and conversation, and that's almost probably even more important than the like actual document that comes out at the end. And so that process of having those conversations, of challenging each other, can be really important to build your team, to engage other stakeholders, and to get you towards success. And the last key to success is a commitment to change. If nothing changes from your strategic plan, then there really was no point in doing it. If you just keep doing the same things that you were doing before, then you just kind of wasted all that time and effort. So you have to be open and ready to be changed, to hear maybe where some things aren't going so well, to get some maybe constructive feedback from people you're working with, to recognize like, okay, that didn't go so well, let's not do that again. And be ready to make the changes that come from that. So strategic planning is about how do we create change, and it requires us to change too. Whew. Okay, I'm gonna take a breath for a second. The last thing I want to share with you before we get into the discussion are just some of my favorite tools and activities for strategic planning. So there's no one way to do strategic planning. I don't feel like maybe somebody has like here's the strategic planning process that works for everyone in every context, but I have a feeling that doesn't really exist. But I found some tools and activities that have been really helpful for me in strategic planning, and want to share them with you to think about maybe if they would be useful in your strategic planning. So the first one, and this is probably the most classic strategic planning tool. If you Google SWOT analysis, there will be like pages and pages and pages. SWOT, it's kind of the most basic strategy kind of tool. But so SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And strengths and weaknesses, the top two, are looking internally at your organization. So what are we good at? What are we not good at? And the opportunities and threats are looking externally at the context and environment around you. So what's happening out there in the world that is an opportunity that we could leverage? And that could be, maybe there's there's an election coming up in Calgary. So maybe that's an opportunity to, get a new counselor on our side because they're going to be looking for votes. That's an opportunity that's out there in the world that we could leverage. Or threats, things that are happening out there. So like right now, COVID, I'd say, is a pretty big threat that could sort of cause problems or challenges or risks to what you're doing, and that you need to be aware of, because it could impact your success. And when you get into like more advanced strategic planning, you can like do things where you like look, you kind of cross these boxes. So it's like, how do we use our strengths to address the threats? Or what opportunities, or what like opportunities would sort of mitigate what weaknesses we have. And so you can see how they interact with each other. The next one is a bit less well-known of one. This one's called an impact gap canvas. And this one is really focused at that external looking things. It's saying what's already happening out there. What are the challenges? Let's really understand the context of this problem that we're trying to solve, or this opportunity. So you do the two sides first. So the challenge mapping is what's all the challenges that are out there, what's holding this problem in place that we're trying to address. And then on the other side, you do, okay, what are all the things that are working? What's going well? What are people doing already to work towards this? And then the third step is to say, okay, what's the gap between those two? Because maybe that's where we can, have the best opportunity to create change or to push the needle further. And so it's really looking at that external look. This one, the 5 bold steps, it's kind of like all of a strategic plan sort of boiled down into one page. So you start with the vision statement, is like, where are we trying to get to? And then you pull out different themes that you think are important in working towards that vision statement. And then you look at the 3 as like the context and environment around those themes, understanding what's there. 4 and 5 are the supports and challenges that you might face. And then once you've sort of put that all out, then you think about, okay, what are the 5 steps that make sense for us to take going forward, given all of these things. So it's just a different way of thinking about that. This one we looked at last week, so I'm not going to go into much detail. This is a social business model canvas. It's another way that you can look at strategic planning and think about the different aspects that are involved. And this one is this activity I actually really enjoy. This one's less in like coming up with your strategic plan and more activity to make your strategic plan even better. And so what you do is like, once you kind of have an idea of what your strategic plan is, what pathway are you going to take, where are we going, you can do this exercise to sort of identify things that might not work, or where could it. And what the activity is you get a group of people together, and it could be your team, it could be external, it could be community members, it could be anyone, and you share what the project is, or the plan is. And then you ask everyone to like imagine like whatever the end phase is. If it's a 3-year strategic plan, imagine 3 years from now this failed. Like, let's think about, and then ask people to think about, okay, why do you think this failed? And let's brainstorm a list of all the ways that we think it's going to fail. And then you ask people to share those, here's how it's failed and here's why it failed. And then you can go back and strengthen your plan based off of those things, because you've just pulled out sort of all these risks and challenges that you might run into along the way. And that then you sort of say, okay, like, is this really a concern we should be worried about? Sometimes they're like ridiculous, like aliens invaded and that's why it failed. That one maybe you don't actually have to change your plan for, but maybe someone thought of something that like was really good that you hadn't thought of, and you do need to switch your plan because what they said could be really likely. So those are some tools. There's so many other tools out there. You can like Google away and find so many strategic planning tools. Yeah, that's a reminder of just those keys to successful strategic planning. I will stop talking now. Thanks for bearing with me through all that, and open it up for a bit of a discussion. And I've got some questions here, but also happy to answer any questions you guys might have. Like I said, I'm not an expert, but I have done some strategic planning for sure, and I do enjoy it. So happy to share ideas or learning. Yeah, I'm curious to hear, sort of thinking about everything I just shared, what could a strategic planning process look like for SOS Congo?
Sorry, can you repeat your question? So I was reading a message from Jolie. She sent a message before.
Oh, no problem. Can you see my screen? I have questions up there, but
Oh.
basically my framing question is like, what could a strategic planning process look like for SOS Congo? What would it help you to do? Or why might it be helpful for you right now? Would you think a more deliberate or a more emergent approach might work best? Who would you want to be involved? In what ways? What activities or tools might you want to try for it to be useful? And how could you integrate that plan and use it on an ongoing basis?
Mm-hmm. Any responses? Any questions so far?
I just threw a lot of information at you, I know.
What do you guys think of strategic planning so far? Like, what do you guys see it as right now? Maybe I'll go to Junior. What did you catch from that presentation? What would you see strategic planning as representing?
Yeah, in the case of SOS Congo, like I feel like we've done a lot of this stuff. Like we've like we know our weaknesses and strengths, and like we know our roles, our responsibilities. We have the right people. Like we've planned the process a little bit as well. That's something that we can do more of, and I feel like we're on the right path, like creating ours.
Are we sure? That's a really good response, but are we sure that we've done that? Alyssa, can you
I thought, yeah, that's something that. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like that's we can still, like, we're still in the beginning stages, but I feel like we're doing well, should I say.
Okay. All right. Alyssa, can I share my screen really fast here? I just want to share some documentation from SOS Congo we can go through together to help us kind of land. So the last time we did any strategic planning in depth with SOS Congo was 2014-ish. I still have the document for that here. So we answered a few questions as kind of a group there. You guys, I can't see you guys. Okay. There you guys are. Do you guys see my screen? Okay. So overall, when we talk about the mission that we had in 2014, I want you guys to let me know if what you guys know about the organization, if we've met this goal, and then if we haven't, how to go about changing it. So I'll read out the mission and the vision, and then hopefully that'll give us a good jump off to start talking about some of these questions Alyssa's kind of trying to ask us. So point 6 here, the organization's mission overall is to create a sense of fraternity amongst various people. To do this, we must first create a sense of fraternity within our own somewhat disjointed community. Our method is to instill a sense of pride in one's own nation and in individuals who otherwise have no regard for their mother country. This is the seldom addressed side effect of coming from a nation that has been ravaged by war. So just looking at that first point there, just looking at the mission, from what you guys know about SOS Congo, is there a sense of fraternity or anything there created? And then secondly, looking at our vision is to one day to have a hall that will cater to the needs of our community, one that can host after-school programs, community events, weddings, and other community-based initiatives. We would like to have memberships from every Congolese community and have a vibrant Facebook page where everyone can go share their stories and give moral support to each other and receive it if they are in need.
I think there's a sense of fraternity in the community, but I wouldn't say with everyone. Like, I feel like we all have our own little small groups, and we just need to come together as a whole group, if you know what I mean. Because I feel like a lot of the Congolese people are separated by regions or by tribes or by You know what I mean? Like wherever they come from, like West, South, Southern Congo, Western Congo, Central Congo, or whatever part they're from, Eastern Congo.
Okay. So if we were to do a kind of just SWOT analysis, just overarching with this thing. So what you're saying is that some of the stuff is there in terms of creating a sense of fraternity, but there's still division. So would you say that this still falls in a weakness?
Yeah, I think that's one of our weaknesses. I think definitely we would be stronger if all the different people from Congo would come together and agree on and just mutually agree on things and work together.
Okay. And what about the great answer, but what about the overall mission? Is the overall mission still a relevant mission, or is the overall vision still a relevant vision? A kind of like if we look at our organization, if we look at what we set out to do, so hopefully you guys are still maintaining a big picture kind of analysis of everything. So at the beginning of the week, we talked about social enterprises, how to get your own, how to register one, how they function, how they operate, how they're funded, all that kind of stuff. Now, where we're landing, once you have kind of that organization, how do you kind of guide it? How do you steer it? How do you direct it? How do you make sure you're kind of achieving your goals there? Does everyone understand that that's what we're trying to do right now? Is that clear? Can more of you guys turn on your video so I can like see? I'm just talking to just straight blank screens, and that's hard.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
So I want to say like what Alyssa said, like when we were planning, how this is kind of still the beginning phases of SOS Congo, and the way that we're gonna be successful is preparing for any possibilities, like anything that could have gone wrong. So bringing along with us, like planning ahead and making sure that like ahead of time that we don't fall into like any ditch or fall like off track. Like as like I believe like the first time that the first attempt at SOS Congo, it kind of fell off track and not all the members were in. And like this time I feel like we're set up pretty well. Like we're still on a good path, but like there's always room to improve and stuff. So like I guess we're just learning from like the first few months.
We are learning from the first few months. Yeah, there's a lot of good things to go, but have we identified our goals yet? Have we identified so once we've identified what's out there, kind of what's happening out there, what the threats are out there, then we have to I identify like what our goals are, like what we want to see. Then we have to talk about how we're gonna do it. Now do you guys see why strategic planning takes so much time? Like there's so many things to actually consider, because Vince is right. It's almost like half and half. It's almost like half the things are kind of there, but there's still some like other things kind of missing with almost like each one of those points. Like if I asked Laurent what the mission and vision was, I think he could probably give me like half of that. But like we would have to really talk through and developing what the other part of the vision is for SOS Congo. And to do that, we'd have to know what's happening like outside of SOS Congo, what's happening in the community, how you guys are feeling, what fears are you guys holding that the group should need to address. Because in the vision and mission I just showed you, there's nothing about COVID there. There's nothing about anti-racism or this black life. People weren't talking like this plan is from 2000, 14. Were you guys still in elementary school back then? Who was even in high school back? Life was really different in terms of like what we were seeing as being important. So I want to really endorse what Vince said about some of the stuff being there, some of the things falling off. But when we're talking about things, when we're talking about some stuff, we have to get away from the space of making it vague. When we go into strategic planning, we start nailing down what those things actually are. Is that logical? Is that clear? Okay. So I'm gonna put back SOS Congo's mission and vision again, and then let's try to like tear it apart. So you guys, you know what? Which would be more helpful if we put the SWOT analysis up, so we can like really take a look at strengths, weaknesses from the inside and the outside, kind of easier, or would it be helpful to have the old mission and vision statement there, and then we're able to kind of pick it apart and see where it's kind of flopping. Which method?
The mission
What
state.
mission?
Sorry.
Said the mission and vision statement, and I think that's a great idea. I think like having a really strong vision and mission can really help you to do, if you're not all really super clear on that vision and mission, then it's going to be really hard to plan how to get there if you all have slightly different ideas of like which mountaintop you're getting to.
Exactly. And this is, you know, there's one part of strategic planning Congolese love. That's when we criticize things, we tear things apart, we say what's going bad. But we have to remember the other part of this is we have to think plot a really in-depth and thorough plan forward. That's kind of strategic planning. Laurent, it looks like we talk about like the last thing on earth you'd want to be talking about right now. Is like exactly what we're talking about. The look on your face, man. It's not such a you okay? You still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm good.
Okay, all right, cool. All right, let me put that back up. Even here, even values, we put Christian foundation, community, fraternity, sacrifice, respect. We're fun-loving individuals um, that have a very relaxed attitude. We strive to carry ourselves in a manner that fosters a comfortable environment where ideas can flow. Our board members, even this SOS Congo is comprised of 6 board members. We have a horizontal organizational structure, but there are different roles, treasurer, secretary, director, and 3 program heads. We're not there anymore. I think we're down to 4. All board members are active in the routine activities of the association and have equal voting power, blah, blah, blah. The board engages in that stuff. I'll read out the organization mission again. The organization's overall our mission is to create a sense of fraternity amongst various peoples. To do this, we must first create a sense of fraternity within our own somewhat disjointed community. Our method is to instill a sense of pride in one's own nation, in one owns, wow, that's a weird sentence, in one owns nations, individuals. I don't know what I was trying to say there. Who otherwise may have no regard for their mother country. This is seldom addressed side effect of coming from a nation that has been war torn. Let's just talk about the overall mission first. Does this make sense as a mission in 2021? What needs to be added? What's not included there? What's happening on the outside? That should influence this mission here. Where's SOS Congo strong? Where's SOS Congo weak? These are the kind of questions we should be asking ourselves. Or like, what do we want to address even? Are we still looking to address the problem of creating a sense of fraternity in the community? Or is there a completely different set of issues that are more relevant to you guys now?
I think there's definitely a different, we have other challenges that we need to deal with first before we can create a sense of fraternity, because there's a reason why there's no sense of fraternity or belonging or group. I mean, and that's all comes down to the challenges we're facing, like racism, also obviously socioeconomic, like Christiana said. Yeah, there's just things that are not included that we need to include in it now.
All right, any other perspective?
Throw out just in hearing you say that, Jolly, one activity I meant to put in there as a tool or resource that could use is something called like a 5 why analysis. And so you were just saying like there's reasons behind that, and the 5 why analysis is like just a conversation you have where you keep asking why at least 5 times. So why is that not happening? And then here's why that's not happening. So why is that not happening? And why is that not happening? And kind of really gets you to some of the roots. Anyway, something to think about. I don't know if we have time for that tonight, but something you may want to think about doing going forward.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's like, I feel like, yeah, there's a reason why we're missing all these pieces. So I guess we can include that in our plan, our strategic plan for SOS Congo.
Good stuff. Any responses from Christiana, Pam, Raisa, Ketia?
Yes, I was going to say that we need to provide a bit more clarity on exactly what needs we need to provide for our community, just to see what needs to be done and can actually achieve these goals. I see that you mentioned here hosting after-school programs or community events or even weddings, but I think it's a very generic idea. If we could just provide a bit more of a specific course of action that we need to provide for these needs, that would be very beneficial.
But the question here is, are we still trying to address those needs there? Is it still beneficial overall to be looking to provide after school programs and everything like that? Like if our goal is shifting from creating a sense of fraternity in the community, how does that shift some of the, I don't know, like some of those things you just kind of mentioned? There's some of the activities that we'll be hosting.
In terms of fraternity, I don't know specifically.
I know it's hard. We are definitely
yeah.
gonna come back to this. This is just the introduction, but everything that we're taking down right now, this is valuable information, it's valuable data. It's good stuff. Pam?
Pam left at 7:30.
Really? I'm looking at her right here.
Oh, she left a message.
She's still here.
Oh.
Oh, she did? I think that was Palche.
Oh, sorry, that was Palche, yeah.
Pam, do you have anything to share? You're on mute there.
She said the baby's crying in the room in the chat.
Oh, I see. I didn't see that message. Okay, no, it's all good, Pam. Katia or Raisa, looking at the vision, looking at the mission, how do we shift this? How do we improve this to make it more relevant to the needs of the community in 2021?
So you asked, sorry, but you asked something about what fraternity activities for youths that you just mentioned. I don't know who you mentioned to, but I was gonna say that we can host like, those those activities where you. Sorry, I'm just tired and I'm just tired. But the activities where you like host like giving like helping youth for jobs, like jobs applications, all that. Yeah.
No.
Having like different managers come and like helping them with their resumes, maybe, I don't know, interviews, just new skills, help the youth build up new skills.
Great response. Now, with that response there, take what Alyssa was asking just now. Now let's ask why to what you just said there. So if we were to start providing that service, why do you think we should start providing that service?
Because I think a lot of youth struggle on that. Jobs. I think just skills in general, building skills, because I don't think we really have the opportunity to build that at school. We don't really have.
There's something else, not opportunity to build it in school. So that's telling us that out there's a gap. You know,
Yeah.
there's a gap happening out there. Okay, keep going. This is excellent.
So yeah, we don't really learn that at school, and even if we do, it's just not enough. It's just not enough. Like nowadays, we do everything on YouTube. We search. Like me, before I go to an interview, I have to go on YouTube and type
Mhm.
how to like go through an interview, and like I can say that it doesn't really help 100%, but like maybe having like not a tutor but someone to guide you would be better, someone with more experience and all that. Yeah.
No, that is awesome right there, because we can even say something like, if we want to still continue to foster that sense of fraternity, that sense of community, being able to meet people at their point of need, being able to say that a great need within our communities to be economically mobile or whatever, to be able to get jobs, to be able to feel confident in interviews and stuff. Yeah, those are the kind of examples we were looking for. Good stuff. Anybody else? We'll go. I was saying Raisa, Keita. Keita, did you have anything to say, or were you okay?
No, I didn't have anything to add. I was just kind of just following along.
All right, good stuff. Anything from Junior or Vince?
So we're talking more like ideas to add into the community, like our like the SOS Congo.
Yeah, talking about ideas just are really in that space to revamp. If we're looking at strategic planning now, so we talked about, we talked about developing or getting your own social enterprise as a tool in the toolkit. Now we're talking about developing a strategic plan as a tool, to be able to impact systems, like how we were talking about systems in past lessons before. So I'm getting a lot of tired looks, a lot of people kind of like, we are definitely gonna keep going at this in bits and pieces. This is the first time we're trying to address like really big problems and narrow them down this way. So we will definitely come back to it. It will definitely start to click, but it's a Friday, it's a long weekend. Maybe we'll just kind of not beat a dead horse there. So I do appreciate you guys being here. I do appreciate how much feedback we've been able to have. But right now, I'll just go to some of the facilitators to kind of end off. We'll start with Papa Ndembe. Did you have anything to say around strategic planning or your experience with it? Or I see you there. Tonto? Papa Ndembe. He's on the phone somewhere else. If he's asleep, that would be hilarious. Is he sleeping?
Looks like it.
No way.
No, no. I'm here.
Oh no, I think you were sleeping.
No, I'm thinking.
You're thinking. Okay.
Yeah, it's a good meeting. No, I was sleeping.
Okay, no worries. If you had anything to share around strategic planning, I know you've probably had to do a lot of it throughout your career, or even if you have critiques around how SOS Congo is operating right now with the strategic, or like the plan we kind of started out with in 2014. We've had a really emergent, I can say, plan. Like we started out in 2014, but things have shifted and changed. But giving you guys a chance here. And if Daniel, si tu veux dire quelque chose aussi, un mot, tu peux parler aussi maintenant. Mama Carol, toi aussi. And Felicia, you too, if you have something to add, we're going to end it off with you guys, and then we'll close up shop, a reset for Monday or Tuesday. So go ahead, Papa Ndembe.
I think the things was clarified when because I was getting a bit confused on talking about the strategic planning. Was it individual strategic planning or as a group So if it's a group, then we need to give the input. So that it can be out strategic. So then the group should be we are ready, like the young man said it, we have started. So we are coming a group. For the time we define, we say that we are becoming a community. So the community is making a strategy. So then those principles then they are then welcome. So we are making a strategy for the group where we want to go, and how we have to reach there. It is really important. And then we need to buy to that. So when we put the inputs, and then we want to buy to that. But anyway, about the strategic notes, let's continue to develop it. But one thing really struck me more, which is that said maybe I will continue to pray for these young people. It is the fear, the anxiety, the pressure. I see that I apologize on the name of the parents. Sometimes we put too much pressure on our young ones. But I will just give a piece of advice. Don't really give that pressure too much because it's too heavy. It's too heavy. And if you feel like quitting, don't quit. Don't run away. Because if you develop the spirit of quitting, running away from depression, you'll be running all your life. And then you'll end up not doing anything. I getting really to know, because I'm very new here, hearing those experiences and say, oh, people really suffer. So I'm even thinking how we can uplift and help each other. I think we have started some more. The document about the strategy, let's develop that. I think already there's something in place. So if we could come with something that we put, then we agreed upon, say, okay, we're working to that, and then that's what we want to come up, I think will be great, eventually be great. There's something already started. Sometimes we neglect, we won't think that we need big, no, we start small, and then it develops. So that would be my comment this evening. Yeah.
Perfect. No, thank you. It's always good to get the response from the other generation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Daniel, t'as un mot à partager?
Non, ça va. Ça va.
Mamba, yeah.
Ouais, c'est Papa Demba a tout dit. C'était très intéressant de l'écouter dire ça. Et je pense que c'était une réunion très bénéfique pour moi, bien évidemment.
Très bon. All right. Felicia, Carol, any comments, observations, perspectives?
I just want to say the discussion that you had earlier. I don't have much to add to the strategic planning. It was all well presented. The discussion that was earlier after that video. What an interesting discussion, guys! And it was so great to hear such young people with such insightful, very insightful. And so keep it up, keep going, and keep thinking deeply about social issues and social issues of social injustice. So that was very good to be a part of. So thank you.
Good stuff. And Felicia, you got the final word there. There you are. Good to see you.
I'll turn it on for this.
Wow.
Yeah, I agree with Carol. Like, I thought it was great. Like, I kept wanting to give my 2 cents, but then a lot of what I was thinking or was gonna say that the youth had come up with. And in regards to the strategic plan, like my company did a huge strategic plan overhaul like a couple years ago. And just like what Alyssa says, it's not like a 2-day thing. Like we had a full day where all the staff kind of took part. We did that SWOT thing. And then it was like we formed committees even afterwards to like, so that we could keep looking at it and building on it. And it changed over a couple of years. It changed, like, so it's not just a one time put it through and it's done. It really is like take time to kind of go through it and change it and then review it again and change it
I
up
agree.
again. So it's not just a simple just, and it doesn't, and that's the good thing about it. It doesn't have to be like a one time put through. We can just work on it and like actually like expound on it as the time goes on.
Wow, you should have run this whole. You look at you. You look like a teacher. You presented it with, with such authority. Good stuff. No, like just like what Felicia said, it's really true. It's something that we're gonna take away. Something that we're gonna deal with in chunks. We're gonna see how it's gonna develop over time. But it's one of the most critical things that we need in order to move out from that space where it's kind of in our heads. We see ourselves as leaders in our, like, you know, it's all theoretical for now, but having a practical plan for engaging with the community moving forward is really what we're looking to do here. So thank you guys all for coming through and participating. It was a really, really good session. Thank you guys for all the comments and everything. Let me know. Oh, I wish there was a thumbs up. Who said that? Oh, Jolie. Thank you. Jolie, you're like a strategist, eh? You're all about this strategic planning stuff. Good. You're maybe we'll give it to you to lead moving forward. No, it's good. So please keep me posted on whether you guys want to meet on Monday still, or if we can start transitioning to meeting on Tuesday. I'll send a message, or Ashley will send a message on WhatsApp, and then I'll send you guys the Zoom link after that. So hopefully you guys will be hearing from I think it'll be Gifty coming through to talk about strategic planning from a different kind of perspective coming next week. So thank you guys. Keep all this information in. We're going to revisit it and implement it. All right. I'll see you.
Oh, thank you.